goodreads, what's up? Today I wanted to talk about the series I would like to finish in 2021. So there are 17 series in this video that I would really like to finish, and a lot of them are backlist titles, but some of them do have new books coming out, but for the most part I definitely didn't include any series that won't be finished this year. Like, for example, Crescent City series by Sarah J. Maas. There is a new book maybe coming out in 2021, but it's not going to be the end, so I didn't include things like that. But all of these series have been finished or will be finishing, and I still haven't finished the series, but I have definitely started them. So I also didn't include any series that I haven't yet started, because that would just be a really long video, and so I decided not to include those. So, without further ado, let's jump into this. The first series that I would really like to finish now that I've just recently started it is The Folk of the Air, which is by Holly Black. The first one is The Cruel Prince, and this is the only book that I've read in this series. I have been sleeping on this series. Me and Holly Black don't always get along. I don't always love her writing, but sometimes I really do. And this one surprised me very positively when I just recently read it earlier in December. So I definitely want to continue this series, especially because now that I've read this one, I'm like, why is everyone obsessed with Carden and Jude? I don't know yet, so I guess I'm gonna have to find out. And then, of course, Holly Black also puts a lot of political intrigue into this series, and that is really always what gets me. You'll probably hear me talk about political intrigue a lot in this video. Yeah, I'm excited. Okay. Oh, in case you don't know, this first book follows Jude and her twin sister, kind of, when they were really young. Her and her twin sister were taken by her half-sister's Fae father, and he murdered their human parents and took them to the Fae world. Jude and her twin sister are full human, and so now, years later, we're following Jude trying to figure out how to kind of get some power, because she's essentially a second-class citizen, even though she is living in a family that has a lot of, like, clout. So most of people don't really mess with her like they do with other humans, but still she wants to have her own power because she doesn't really trust the adoptive dad who murdered her parents. So that's what it is. And then the Cruel Prince is, of course, the Cruel Prince named Carden, who eventually there's a romance there. Everyone's obsessed with that online, and I still don't really get it, but okay. Another new to me series, I recently started the Daevabad trilogy. This is the second book, The Kingdom of Copper. The first book is The City of Brass by S.A. Chakrabarti, and wow, this first book really blew me away, again with the political intrigue. So this book follows a girl named Nari, who is a human living in 18th century Cairo, and she knows that she has some sort of healing powers, but she doesn't really believe that it's magic. She just thinks she's really good at swindling people and somehow can kind of help people, until one day she is doing this kind of exorcism on this little girl for this family, and again, she doesn't really believe that that's what she's doing. She just wants the cash, but she ends up accidentally bringing this demon out of this little girl, and then calling upon a deva, or a genie is really what the common word that we probably know would be, to help her when this demon comes out of this girl. And then from there, the first book is part adventure story with this Deva, bringing her to the City of Brass where all the Devas live because she clearly has power, and part also following Ali, who is one of the king's sons in Daevabad, the City of Brass. So you're getting some political intrigue in the City of Brass. You're following Nari, who is clearly our chosen one, and so good. This is also technically adult fantasy. There is not any actual sexy times, but definitely some sexual tension, and also there's a lot of gore and murder and torture and things like that. And yeah, I'm just starting the second one right now. I started it last night, and I'm really excited to finish this series. I'm ready. The next series that is also relatively new to me is The Wrath and the Dawn by Renee Ahdieh. This is the first book in the series, and this one is, I did try to put these pretty close to my priority list, but this one is a little bit not quite in the right spot. This is a little bit lower on the list than I should have put it, but this is the first book in a series about a girl named Shahrazad who her best friend was taken by the king, and every night the king weds a woman. This is a 1001 Nights retelling. The king marries a woman and then kills her by the end of the night. And so Shahrazad decides to purposely become the next wife so that she can seek revenge. And she tells stories in order to keep herself alive every night, just like in the original story. And in so doing, obviously, things change. Things are enlightened to us as the readers and to Shahrazad as the person who's not a part of this actual family, the royal family, and I'm like curious enough to know where the series will go next, but I also didn't like some of how it ended. This is like a solid 4-star book for me. The other two so far have been 5 stars. So this is why this one, like, yes, I want to continue reading it, but I think that this was put too high on the list as I made it. Moving on. The next series that I really want to get to is the Arc of a Cythe series by Neil Shusterman. I have read 2 of them. So I've read the first 2. I have the third one left. And this series follows, I'm gonna mess up on the names. I don't remember their names, but we follow 2 main characters, a girl named Anastasia and a boy, don't remember. And they've been chosen to become Cythes. Now in this version of reality, we're like far into the future. Death has been cured. Nobody dies of natural causes or even of accidents or anything like that. Instead, they had to create a group of people called Cythes who do the killing for the community in order to make sure that like population maintains, and there's a bunch of rules and stuff, and in order to become a Cythe has to choose you as his like mentee. And so these 2 kids are chosen by this one Cythe, and the first book follows how one of them is going to get chosen. It was very good, and a lot of conversation on our own society and like how we view death, and also how we view like power in a society. There's like also AI involved and things like that. So interesting, just such an interesting concept to create about these Cythes and like morality within the Cythedom and stuff like that. So good. This one also has a lot of trigger warnings for violence, torture, murder, things like that. So moving on. I also have the Shadow Game series. I've only read Ace of Shades with this one. This is by Amanda Foody, and this book is a historical fiction fantasy based on like gambling and based in like Vegas-esque life. So we have gang members, and there's this girl whose mother died, and she comes to this city to find out what happened to her mother because she like there's mysterious stuff going on, and she gets involved with these different gangs, and it's like really hard to explain without giving anything away, because I feel like this book really starts out with not a lot of information for our main character, and then as the story goes on she gets more and more. But the magic system in this story was really, really fascinating. You have like different types, like kind of elemental magic, but not elemental like air, water, fire, more like there's like electricity and iron and something else. I don't remember, but it was really, really interesting, the magic system. And then also, again, the politics between these 2 or multiple gangs was so fascinating. So I really want to get to this. Moving on. We also have The Carls. I didn't realize that the second book had already come out. This is by Hank Green, an absolutely remarkable thing. This was one of my favorite books of, was it 2018 or 2019? I don't remember when I read it, but this book is a canoe adult science fiction. So we follow a girl who's like 25, 26, which I just love to see that age of a main character, period. You've already sold me. And then on top of that, she's kind of in like the, I want to say she's a graphic designer or something like that, in that field. And she also is it's so good. Okay, so she happens upon this statue as she's coming home from work, and it's this giant like metal man in the middle of New York City, and she doesn't really think anything like science fiction of this because New York City is a pretty weird place to live. So she calls up her friend and says, I want to make this video about this thing, and they call it Carl, and they make this video, and it goes viral as she falls asleep, and suddenly she becomes famous for finding this metal man first in New York City, because what actually happened was in the middle of the night, these metal men fell down in the middle of great big cities all over the world, and she was the first one to upload something about it. So it's about a girl who goes viral on accident and like dealing with that sudden famous and sudden like everybody wants to be around you and everybody wants your attention and all of that. So that in and of itself was a really cool commentary on like social media platforms and our like way of living right now. And then on top of that, it has this science fiction element about these Carls. And the next series that I really want to finish is Renegades by Marissa Meyer. Wow, Marissa Meyer just like has been blowing me away lately. Because of this series, I also read the Lunar Chronicles over this last year, and wow, I'm just loving her writing. And she always picks the same narrator for the female voices in her books. This one has two narrators, a male and a female, but I can't remember her name, but she is amazing, that narrator. She also did the Heartless audiobook. We take place in a world where we have humans and we live basically today, but we also have superheroes, and everybody knows about them. They're not secret. They usually do have a secret identity though, and they essentially are our police force now. So we follow this girl who is considered herself an anarchist, because what we don't know is that the superheroes in power aren't always doing the best work. And so back when she was younger, the superheroes never came to save her parents, and they were murdered by like a gang. And so she's trying to seek revenge. So now, years later, she decides to infiltrate the Renegades, the superheroes, and fake herself into their group so that she can demolish them. And oh, it's so good. So we have like a anarchist versus the Renegades, and we have superpowers, and it's just so fun. This also feels a lot like if you've read or if you've watched The Boys on Amazon Prime, and not if you read it, because the comic books, I don't like them. They're terrible. But the show, the first season at least, was really good, and I do feel like it has some similar conversations about like both society and power, as far as like if we had this, you know, imbalance, and kind of talking about what that imbalance looks like in real life. And then on top of that, kind of making fun of this whole superhero thing with the outfits and all of that. So it was fun. I enjoyed. I need to read both. I've read the first two. I need to read the last one. I also have the Brooklyn Brouha series, and I've read the first two of this one as well. They were both very fun. This story follows their companion-y novels, sort of. So the first one follows one sister, and then the second one follows the second sister in this family of Brouhas, or witches. And so the first one is, I'm gonna get the two confused actually. They blend together because they're two very distinct plots, but I can't remember which one comes first. But I think the first one is about Alex, and she doesn't want to have the powers anymore, so she's trying to get rid of them, I think. Anyways, they're great. I do need a recap though. It's been a while since I've read them. Moving on. Then I also have An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. I've only read this first one here. Now this series is really hard for me to like maintain the plot in my mind. We followed a girl named Laya, and her brother is murdered by the king's men, and then she is enslaved to queen, whatever, the royalty. She's enslaved, so then she lives in the house, and then there's a soldier who like befriends her and wants to save her and help her, and she ends up in some sort of fight, like a championship, like something. I don't remember, and I think there's magic, and I need a recap. because I do want to continue the series, but like I don't remember anything that happened in this book. One thing I will say is I did listen to this, and I think that was a mistake, because sometimes when there's like too much going on for an audiobook with a plot like this, so like fantasy novels tend to not be a good place for me with audiobooks, and I think that was the mistake here. So I'd really like to reread this one if I could, or just watch a really intense like wrap up review of it, but if I could, I really would like to reread this one. Moving on, this is another series that is in the wrong place because this needs to be way up higher on my list, but I need to finish the Diviner series by Liv O'Bray. I've read all of them but the King of Crows, and this is another series that I would really like to reread just altogether because I love these books so much. This is one that I highly recommend on audiobook. We have a narrator called January Lavoie, and she does so many different voices. She sings, she does all of the different accents, and oh my god, it is amazing. So please, if you can, listen to it. So The Diviners is about a girl named Evie O'Neill, and she gets in trouble with her parents because she's, you know, supposed to be all high class society, keeps going into speakeasies and getting drunk. She also has, okay, so this obviously takes place in 1920s. Didn't mention that, but prohibition. Jesus, why was I saying probation? But prohibition obviously plays a role. So Evie O'Neill also has the power to be able to touch something and feel and know its history. So she like could touch, I don't know, my phone and know that it was my phone and how long I've had it and stuff like that. So she has that power. She gets in trouble and gets sent to New York City to live with her uncle, and like, parents, you're dumb. But she goes and lives in New York City with her uncle, ends up getting in more trouble, meeting more friends who also have powers, and then there's also some deep, dark, paranormal, ghosty shit that they have to fix. It's so good. It is a chunker. All of them are chunkers, and this is another series that is kind of episodic. So like you still have the same cast of characters, unlike in the Brouha story where you follow a different character, but they do kind of switch like who's the main character, and you also, each book has a distinct plot, if that makes sense. So they kind of have like an evil power that they have to vanquish each time. Does that make sense? But this one, so good. I can't wait for King of Crows, but I do again want to reread these, and I think I'm going to listen to them again because wow, January Lavoie, amazing. I also would really like to finish the Lifelike series by J. Kristoff. I've read the first one and I really want to read Deviate so badly. I actually don't think this series is finished, so that was the one mistake that I made on this list, but wow, so good. This is science fiction that takes place far into the future. The Earth is kind of like decrepit, kind of like WALL-E. Think WALL-E, how the Earth is like there. And so we follow this girl who tinkers with like robots and stuff, and she's trying to make money doing robot fighting. So she's trying to create a robot, and like that's where it starts, and then it just gets rolling and it goes, and there's like angels involved, but like not really angels, but like superhumans, and so good. I loved the way this is. I don't want to like tell you why I love it, but if you've read it, you know the like what this story actually is, and it's my favorite type of story, and I can't tell you because that would give something away, but it's my favorite trope. Okay, we're moving on. I also would really like to get to Truthwitch by Susan Dennard. So I have read this book, but I haven't read the rest of the series. I think there are 4 in the series, and I actually don't know if this is a completed series either. Mistakes that might have been made, but this is also one of those like companion-y novels where each one follows kind of a different main character, even though they're all a group, and each character has a different power. So in this world we have a fantasy world, not in ours, and each person has a different type of magic within them. So our main character in this one is named Cythe, and she is a Truthwitch, which is really rare. It means that she is a human lie detector, and she keeps her power secret because politically people would want to basically enslave her to their like position to know when political, conversations are being had to make sure that no one's lying to them, right? So she's trying to keep her secret her power a secret. Her best friend is a thread witch. Her name is Isolt, and she can see the threads between people. So she can see how people are emotionally or familially connected and things like that. And I'm pretty sure she can see like soulmate bonds and stuff like that too, which was really fascinating. And it didn't like super go into it in this book, but I think the next one is about her. There's also blood witches where they can like kind of like track you with their blood, and there's a bunch of different types of witches. I enjoyed the first one and then never continued, and this is another one that I would definitely need to reread before continuing. The next book I have, I've only read the first one, and it's The Queen of the Tearling. I can't remember the author's name for this one, but it is on the book cover here, so there you go. And this one I read a long time ago, and I actually thought I didn't like it at the time. I also listened to this on audiobook, so again, when the plots are really, really complicated, that's just like not the way to go for me. And I think this was my first audiobook I ever listened to. So another mistake, because I didn't yet have like the capability to really get all of that information plugged in, so to speak. So this book is super political intrigue too. It reminds me a lot of Game of Thrones. We have the Queen of the Tearling who suddenly becomes queen, and she didn't know that she was an heir and all that, so she's like trying to figure out how to juggle queendom, and there's I think a war brewing, and there's just a lot, and I loved it enough now looking back that I need to reread it. Does that make sense? Like at the time I thought I didn't like it, and now that I think back on it I'm like, damn, that was a really good book and I need to read it again. That's what happened here. Moving on. I also have Across the Universe by Beth Revis. This is the only book I've read in this series, and I think there are 4. This is a science fiction, takes place in the future when, again, kind of like Wall-E, the human, Earth is just gone, and so we have a group of people who are on a ship, and they're being shipped to like another planet in order to like populate it. There are people living on the ship, like maintaining it and everything, and making sure that the people who will actually be alive on that planet will get there safely, but the people on the ship are going to die before they arrive, so they're just living on the ship. And at the beginning of the novel, we have a main character named Amy, and she accidentally wakes up. And so she and the son of the leader of the ship, there's a relationship of information there. This book also has a lot of intrigue about like society, conversations and stuff. All of the people who live on the ship have lived on there, the generations have lived on there so long that they all look the same. It's like, it's the whole idea that like when races will intermingle enough, then we'll all kind of look very similar. So like race isn't a thing. And Amy is a white, redheaded, like Irish girl. And so everyone is kind of like, whoa, what the heck? Like you look so weird. And there's a conversation about that. And there's a conversation of like, it's so good. I really, really enjoyed it. I would, again, need to reread this or just watch a really in-depth review again because I don't remember all of the details, but I do remember really, really enjoying this. Next one that I want to read is Winger. I've read this one. I need to read Standoff. Matt got home. Shh. I'm almost done.
Hurry up.
Winger is a contemporary about a boy who goes to boarding school and is a winger on the rugby team, and it's cute, and I want to read the second one. The next book I have here is The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. This is another one with like groups of people and societal conversations and magic and like kind of the elemental magic like I was talking about before with some of the other series. And I listened to this one, and again, I think that was the mistake here. I feel like I didn't grasp everything that was going on in this book. But like, it seems like it would be a really good book, even though I've read it and I didn't really care. But like, I think that was because of the type of way that I read it. And so I want to reread this because I feel like I would like it if I really understood more of it. And lastly, another one that I kind of am on the fence about. It's The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. This book, I actually initially didn't like it enough that I think I got rid of it. I unhauled it because I can't find it on my shelf. So I'm really hoping my sister still has my copy because I actually gave her, I bought 2 copies of this. Well, one was a gift, and then I bought it myself. And so I gave my sister one. She still hasn't read it. And I think that she doesn't want to read it. And so I'm really hoping that I can get it back from her. Because this book seems like a book that I would love. But I didn't care about the main character. But it also has that favorite trope of mine that I was talking about earlier, that you can't really talk about until after the first book. Because it's like, I can't talk about it. But it should be on one of my favorite lists. But I read it and I just didn't care. But, surprise, surprise, I listened to it on audiobook. So was that the mistake? Would I have liked it had I read it? This is why I want to reread it. I want to read it physically and see if that changes my mind. Because again, I feel like I should love this book. But I also know that I'm not alone in feeling like, what? I feel like a lot of people hype this up as being like this really dark and twisted, fucked up story about like, oh my god, so much terrible shit happens in this book. And I read it and I'm like, wow, I've read way worse books than this. In regards to some of the topics, like trigger warnings. There are trigger warnings for like rape and sexual assault. And like, yeah. And war, like, gore. But like, it wasn't that bad. That sounds like so gross, because obviously, like, yeah, trigger warnings still, but like I was just expecting it to be like way worse, and it was just like, oh, am I a terrible person? I don't know. But yeah, so I think I want to reread this because I just want to love it as much as everyone on Twitter loves it. That's the last book in this set. 17 series that I really want to finish or reread or whatever. And yeah, tell me in the comments below if you're still with me. Top 3, which one should I prioritize? Minus the first 2, The Cruel Prince and the David Bad trilogy, I am prioritizing. I'm in the middle of the second one for the David Bad trilogy, and I'm planning on definitely continuing with The Wicked King because it also won the 2020 Goodreads winner, the Queen of Nothing one. So I do want to finish that series this year. And then David Bad, I'm going to. I already know it. So other than those 2, top 3 priority, help me decide which ones I need to read, please. Okay. All right, and that is everything. So please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Like this video if you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys tomorrow with a new video. Peace out. Bye.